Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is Tuesday, July 25th, and we have a monster show for you today. The European Open just wrapped up over in Finland. Josh, I have just traveled 24 hours, almost exactly, from Finland back to my final destination in the United States. No video today because I am at my family's cabin in Pennsylvania and the internet is trash here. So just an audio podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, sorry, you have to just look at a static image of us. But trust us, we are actually real humans talking in real time.
I am not convinced how many people don't like put on YouTube on their computer and just let it play. I wonder how many people like actually sit down and watch us. I'd be curious to know. But
I mean, it's scintillating television to watch us in our rooms.
Yeah, no, just the occasional glance, I'd assume.
Really, we got a lot to get to. Really, a couple hours before this episode is going to be released, the Disc Golf Pro Tour announcing a substantial update to their transgender policy. They've created a new United Series that is going to open up competition for transgender women at select events, including, unsurprisingly, all of the events that they said that they were going to be canceling the FPO division. For many intents and purposes, this looks like a settlement with Natalie Ryan in some way. That's not in this document, but we're going to, we just got this news as we sat down to record. Jeff Spring will be joining us a little bit later in the show. We're going to talk about what's going on with the Pro Tour, why we've seen a complete flip-flop here, what this means going forward, and we just a lot of questions. But essentially, in states where there are strong protections for anti-discrimination around gender identity, where the tour has been losing or partially losing court cases, we are seeing them, instead of canceling all of those divisions, they are going to allow Natalie to play in this new thing they're calling a United Series, which is going to have its own point structure and its own finishing tournament at the MVP Open. So a lot of questions. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who are upset by this. This is a compromise solution. And so we're going to get into that. But first, we got to talk European Open. What a weekend. Josh, just overall, now that we've had a couple days to kind of process it, what are your takeaways from this European Open? Like, just thoughts on the tournament and what we saw go down.
It demonstrates again just really the depth of the field, the players who were at the top there, and the diversity of names, the fact that you have the likes of Eagle McMahon on chase card, who you're keeping your eye on the entire time, along with, four who were in the running, I guess, on the lead card to win their first major. It's such an exciting tournament. I love the European Open. The spectators add so much to it, and they came out in droves as they usually do. And at least on the MPO side, I mean, it was just such a high level of excitement and performance for professional disc golf. And I said this on the Rapid Reacts, and I'll say it again. I think that majors, I mean, there are people, and as disc golf continues to become more and more, popular and accessible, there are going to be people, and we've talked about this, who watch the majors, right? They come watch the 4 majors, and then maybe they catch highlights for the rest of the tournaments, and then 1 or 2 of their favorites. And you need majors like this in order to compel people and interest them and make sure that they're watching at least the majors. Can't say the same for FPO, but FPO also was on a harder time-wise for the American side to watch, and so I don't think you were going to have as many DGN viewers on the FPO side as well because of that time zone difference and how early it was starting. But we can talk more about what that means for Kristen. But it was a lot of storylines.
There wasn't much reason to tune in rounds 3 and 4 for FPO. Yeah, I mean, so just, headlines. Corey Ellis wins his first ever major, also his first Elite Series, anything, right? His first win on tour, with a dramatic late comeback, as Anthony Barella blows up on hole 16. He cannot put it on the island. He takes an 8 after leading the tournament, off and on throughout the final round, but had really taken command with 3 straight birdies on 13, 14, and 15. Some incredible moments. He hits a 50-footer on 13 from, off the green, kind of down in the shrubs behind the green, just jams a huge putt, like putted out of his mind the whole weekend, and it really looked like it was his to lose. And unfortunately for AB, he lost it. He just could not get it on the island, over and over again, throwing deep behind the island, at one point even going into the gallery, and it was pin drop silent. Just a devastating moment, and I think why we watch sports. I mean, that's an incredible moment. Obviously, it's heartbreaking, but Corey Ellis, we see him on the broadcast. He's checking his phone. He realizes that he's suddenly taken command of this tournament, and after taking a bigger number on round 1, he'd played it safe in rounds 2 and 3. He laid up, went over, took his par, didn't try to do too much, but in this moment, he saw an opportunity. He had a window. He went for the island. He stuck it. He got the birdie. And then threw one of the most amazing, fearless clutch shots that you'll ever see on 17, getting a mid-range, hanging it up in the air. It's not flipping. It's not flipping. It's not flipping. It finally flips very late and settles down onto the green. He gets the birdie. He's got 2 strokes going into 18. He can play it for par, and he walks it in. And, you think of the times that he's blown up when he went into the, threw it long, juiced it at the MVP Open into the gallery to lose that tournament. Had a chance to hit the putt to go to a playoff, couldn't hit it. And we see him crushed in the clubhouse afterwards, knowing that he had this chance to get this, career-defining win. And then to turn around and win it at the major, it's just an incredible story. And it was amazing to sit and watch the whole thing. There were 6 different players in the lead at one point during the final round, Josh.
It was such an exciting round. And what's so interesting to me about that is it's so... This is a player who you didn't really talk about, because fair, he didn't really do anything discussion worthy in the final round. Calvin Heimburg, the number 1 player in the world right now, comes into the final round with a 2-stroke lead. And, I'm skeptical of Calvin's performance at the majors, and we go into that final round, and during Rapid Reacts, after round 3, I say, look, this is Calvin's first time leading in a major. He could win this. He is the favorite. You took him over the field in odds. UDisc win probability had him at 61%. And I said, look, this is an opportunity in exactly the position where Calvin wants to be. He knows what it's like to play from a lead. He is doing so for the first time in a major, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to just take this and walk it in. And it's I think that's what's so mind-blowing, is just how fast this final round became a race, right? Like it wasn't even the case of
it was instantaneous,
right,
Josh.
3 holes in.
It was instantaneous.
And
Calvin goes, he pars hole 1, right? He's out of position. And then he burns his drive on hole 2, and then doesn't really get it quite close enough. He's in circle 1 and he misses the putt, and he takes a bogey, and then he pars 3, and you're like, goodbye lead.
Right.
That was it. Other people on the course are going birdie, 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 birdie. And Calvin didn't birdie until hole 5. Right. It was he couldn't find the range with his off the tee basically the entire time. I mean, I guess you could argue he found it late because he birdied 4 of the last 6 holes, but it was too late.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at that point.
He was only in circle 1 in regulation.
That's the stat I was about to pull.
On 2 of the first 12 holes. 2 of the first 12 holes. Nightmare.
And to be
nightmare from Calvin.
To be honest, his 4 of 6 in the last 6 holes on the course, not all that impressive either. Like, he played better. It's good, but it was bad from Calvin, and so that's part of it, right? When a leader gives up a lead like that and in that manner, where it's just instantaneous right out the gate, he's got 3 or 4 guys who are just running right past him. That's what made this tournament so interesting, easily and right off the bat, right? That final round was captivating because if Calvin matches that pace, the feeling is now, okay, Calvin is going to have to be the one to make the mistakes. But I mean, when he comes out that slow and that flat, you've got Ezra who goes, and maybe it was fed by the fact that the guys on chase card and back were playing really, really well, right? Ezra, he goes 5 down through 7. Kyle Klein, in the front 9, manages to go 5 down, it looks like. Corey Ellis started a little slow, actually. And then Eagle, after his double bogey, just a furious charge. And if it weren't for 2 late bogeys,
went nuclear.
Would have very much been in the mix. I mean, that double bogey, it's hard to what if, because that double bogey may have motivated him to go on that heater. But I mean, he had 4 bogey strokes, a double bogey and 2 bogeys, and he had 4 OB strokes, and it was on those holes. 2 on the double bogey and 1 on each of the bogeys. So he keeps those between the lines, and Eagle is very much in that mix.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he said it himself. I think he was in a position to win. I think he had the highest birdie percentage on the weekend, and he just made some very untimely mistakes. And you just can't go OB. You just cannot. You can't go out there and take those big OB strokes. And look what Corey Ellis did. He never went OB the whole round. Or the first, when I asked Philo, what was the secret? What was the thing that separated Corey Ellis? That was basically what he said. Well, I think he specifically said he didn't bogey. Yeah. He never took a bogey. He went 10 under, and he played smart. And you look at the other guys up near the top. Kyle Klein, 1 shot back of Ellis, had a bogey. Ezra took that double bogey on 11. Eagle, double bogey on 3, and a pair of late bogeys. Calvin didn't birdie enough to even be in the mix. Everybody else down the board had a bogey. In fact, it's possible the entire field had a bogey besides Corey Ellis, which is that's an incredible stat. No, Kevin Jones was bogey free 8 under.
Where did Kevin Jones finish? 28. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't have his best week. And here's the thing. Okay, people are going to say the Calvin stans are going to say Calvin finished top 5 again. He's always in the mix. He's there again, most consistent player, number 1 player. But the fact is, Josh, if you can't show up and win a major with a 2-shot lead over a bazillion people who've never won a major, there are going to be questions about your ability to be a champion at the highest level. I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is not a narrative from nowhere. And we could, let's drop the times he's finished 40th or whatever. His average major finish is good. It's pretty good.
It's top 10.
He's like between 2nd and 7th most of the time. He's a great player. But you can't look at this one and say, oh, look, he finished 4th. He did good. No, he blew it. He blew his opportunity to win. It's not like he came from 10th up to 4th and had already been out of it. He shot an incredible 12 under the day before and then could not throw a clean drive in the final round. And we've seen this before. We saw this at Worlds in Utah.
That's what I was
watching him not be able to throw drive.
I remember.
So look, do I think Calvin's going to win eventually, Josh? Yes, I think he's going to win a major eventually. But you have to acknowledge that he's failing to execute in the highest pressure spots. And like, if we come out of this season and, let's say Macbeth ends up winning another major this year, like how can you, like, can he win player of the year? Like, he's going to have, like, if Gannon wins a major, to me, it's Gannon. Gannon's got a more killer instinct. Gannon didn't travel to this tournament, so you have to knock him for that. But like, if Gannon wins USDGC again, I'm absolutely going to put him above Calvin in my ballot. You got to win majors. Sorry, I'm going on and on. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've had a couple people express to us the dissatisfaction with the narrative, right? When they say, you need to reward Calvin and Anthony Barella as well for always being in the mix. And like, I don't know, I guess if you want to build a shed next to the Hall of Fame at the International Disc Golf Center that says always in the mix and put Calvin's name in there, then go ahead. But here's the thing. I was thinking about it this weekend. If you went up to Calvin right now and said, Calvin, you can trade seasons with Corey Ellis. No other wins. Where's Corey? I'm going to look at where Corey Ellis is in the standings now. Corey Ellis is 11th in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. So you go up to Corey Ellis and you say, all right, Corey, you can trade seasons. I would have to think that Calvin would take that deal.
Nah, I disagree.
You've got to think at this point, though, that Calvin is...
No, but he's got multiple wins. He's at number 1 in the standings. He's been the best player this season.
And we're not going to talk about it once in
one major.
2 years.
If it's Worlds, maybe we have a different conversation. But for European Open, I don't think you trade your season with Corey.
If you're Calvin...
and listen, I agree with you. Like, there's enhanced magnitude for winning a major, no question. But that to me goes too far right now.
If you're Calvin, though, I think you have to be worried about your ability to win at a major. And you have to feel like, and maybe Calvin's just like, nope, and he, like, you don't play this well in the regular season and this poorly at the majors without something psychological happening to you at the majors. And if you're Calvin, I hope that worries him, because it worries me. And I don't know. I understand, but you would have to think that Calvin, the thought of just having one major under his belt would be just such a relief to him right now. Because again, he has never been in a better position. And we've watched him fold on lead cards before in the major. And this one was the worst one yet. And it's tough. Like you said, though, like, I don't think Calvin, if Gannon or somebody else puts together a strong second half of the season with a major, I think they take preference over Calvin player of the year. And I know that the Hall of Fame in disc golf is kind of goofy. But if you're thinking like traditional sports, I don't think Calvin is qualified for the Hall of Fame.
Probably not yet. No. But I think he's going to get there.
I think so too. I hope so.
There is some element of randomness to all of this, right? Some days you have it, some days you don't have it. Sometimes you have it in the wrong time. And, Macbeth gets all this credit for his amazing Champions Cup round when he was completely out of contention and had no chance to win. So, look, the thing is, it's tough because Calvin Heimberg, all he had to do was shoot his rating. If he shot his rating, he wins by 2 strokes. Mm-hmm. But he had his worst round. He shot a 4 under on a perfect weather day. It is what it is. I want to move on. Anthony Barella also has been dogged by just the issues that he tends to have late. He's never won a tour tournament. Obviously gifted. I mean, is there anybody who has more talent than him? It's like, I think there's people who have better mentality. That's obvious enough. But from just a raw skill standpoint, right? It's the longest thrower on tour. The dude can throw it like 95 miles an hour. And I thought start to finish European Open, he was the best player at this tournament. He was better than Corey Ellis. He just had one bad hole at the worst possible time. But he was the best player. His putting was incredible. Incredible. I don't think I've ever seen him putt this good. This is a very positive sign for him moving forward. And I got to be honest, I've been defending AB all week in the Rapid Reacts. And I'm not going to sit here and defend taking an 8 there. I think once you miss the island, you got to just take your medicine and take your bogey, probably. I think he maybe should have laid up in the first place because he was kind of out of position.
I think so too.
Back edge, like by the OB, and he was, of course, it's such a high pressure shot. You're all jacked up on adrenaline, and I don't know. It's easy to second guess. Obviously, he has the power to reach that shot every time without question, but you haven't practiced from there probably, and he just. He couldn't make the adjustment, right? He kept throwing super fast, overstable stuff, and it kept being skippy and it kept going long. So the thing is, I see the potential for him to be like multi-time major winner. That's how good he looked this weekend. He was awesome for multiple rounds and obviously should have won this tournament.
If Anthony Barella could fix his mentality issues, he could be the generational player that we're talking about. He could be better than Gannon Burr. He could be better than Calvin Heimberg. I mean, that would be the trio of guys that you could be. I mean, Eagle, you stick him in the mix, right? Like there are guys. Like Anthony Barella has all the talent.
Look forward 3 years. Yeah. I think there's your players.
Right. Like that's Anthony Barella has all the talent to contend for a top player in the world title. And it's almost shocking that you would say that if you just said, I think that the number one player in the world, or the guy who has the potential to be the number one player in the world has never won an Elite Series or a major, most people would laugh, right? Without the context, they would say that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, Anthony Barella has amateur titles. He is a lifelong disc golf player, and he has perhaps more talent than any player we have seen. And now that his putting is fixed, like you're right, he putted amazing this weekend, and that's been the case for most of the season. I feel. I mean, his putting has been so much better than it has been in the past. Because before you were like, oh yeah, Anthony Barella throws really well, and then you just kind of like laughed it off because it just didn't matter because he didn't putt well enough. But at 85%.
Yeah, he's missing circle one putts. 83%
C1X. I mean, that's still 73rd. It could go up, but that's a fine stat. That is, he needs to keep going up or he's going to fall behind, but that's fine. And then 7th with...
But he's top 10 on tour and circle 2.
35%, and that's exactly right. But, man, that... I just... After this tournament, before the Rapid Reacts, I was laughing to myself because I remember how vehemently everyone, including you, Charlie, wanted to argue with me that MCU was not a blow up. Or MCO, Music City Open, was not MCU. MCO was not a blow up like we've seen in the past. And you said the phrase, I think Anthony Barella can get it done. You said that again in the Rapid Reacts.
I did.
And
when he hit the 50-footer on 13, I was like, this dude's going to win the tournament. He was hitting the clutch shots. And when has he blown up off the tee?
I hear you.
Well, this wasn't off the tee, right? It was a fairway shot, but
and not in a putt.
We've not seen him struggle with a non-putting situation like this in a clutch moment. And I think to me, this shows you that it's not really the putting. It's just the overall level of stress, pressure, anxiety in those spots, causing, physical miscues or mental decision making in this case, potentially. But what I saw this weekend was very encouraging, right? He was 92% C1X, he was 44% Circle 2, and it didn't go away in the final round. He was hitting huge putts.
He's got to win one.
it's just a matter of time for him too. I mean, I think he's got what it takes eventually. But, he's a perfect example of someone who needs a real caddy. Not Paul Macbeth showing up midway through the round to carry the bag and say nothing as you spray shots past the island over and over and over again. Like, he needs somebody to help him actually make those good choices. And like, he's the coolest dude on tour, right? Look at this guy. He's out there. He's got like I don't know if they're Pit Vipers or something else, but he's got the sunglasses, he's got the chain, he's got the throwback Diamondbacks jersey with his logo, and he looks so swag, and he's always nonplussed, and he has a tuna sandwich and a Monster energy drink after getting out of bed at 12 p.m. or whatever. A dude does not care. It's awesome. But like, that is all looking like a front when you take an 8 on hole 16 when you have a chance to close out a major, right? All that cool swagger, that's a sheen, that's a facade that's hiding that you're actually deeply anxious about those situations. And he's going to have to come to grips with that. And we've seen players go through this, right? We saw Eagle go through this when he was the pro, this incredible, prodigy player. But the actual meaning of the word, not the sponsor. And his time will come, Josh. I've become an Anthony Barella. I'm Anthony Barella truther, I guess. All right, I want to get to something else before we talk a little Kristen Tatar and her domination. Corey Ellis shot a 10.53 average this weekend. That's about 20 points lower than what we saw from Eagle and Paul last year. So my first question is, was this year's European Open MPO side more compelling with all these players in the mix and 9 of the top 10 never having won a major in the final round? Was that more compelling than last year's McBattle, where we had 2 of the greats playing at the highest level that we've seen at a major basically ever?
Wow, that's a hard question.
Because there was nobody else, right? Last year, you were just waiting to watch Eagle and Paul throw because who cares after that? Kevin Jones, you can do whatever you want.
Man, this is a really hard question.
Josh is frozen.
Because I'm trying also to remove like the recency bias, right? Like, we just got done watching this amazing tournament. I am going to say I think that I prefer the Paul Eagle battle. I think for me that is more compelling because Corey Ellis stepped up and made the incredible shot. Like Anthony Barella blow up, the flat Calvin Heimberg. I mean, there's a lot of storylines that go into this one. But at the end of the day, when 2 of some of the sport's best players to ever play this game go up and shoot the best they possibly could have, there's no what ifs left, right? It was just a 1v1 duel, and Eagle pulls that out. Like that to me is just peak sports, even with all the drama surrounding this one. So I am going to say the Eagle Paul battle. That's a hard question, though.
Yeah, I think it is hard. I think this was more dramatic in some ways, but the final 4 holes last year were incredible. I went and rewatched it before the tournament just to kind of remember back. And oh man, like they were trading strokes, like those final 4 holes, and like they were making some incredible shot making. I think part of the thing that maybe held back this final round is, and that it may not age quite as well. Like, I don't think people are going to go back and watch this one again, unless you're a huge Corey Ellis fan.
Right.
Is it like there wasn't really that much incredible shot making happening? It was kind of an average level of play. Now, sure, Corey shot a 10 down. It's a good round, but it's not an elite round. And he had some really clutch shots, but a lot of it was just like very steady, solid execution. And that's a great way to win a major. and he deserved it. He went out and won it. We talked about this in the reacts. You know, did other people lose it or did he win it? And I still contend that he won it. He went bogey free, 10 down, and yes, other people had to make mistakes for him to be able to win, but he took advantage of that and he was aggressive when he needed to be. But it wasn't like some kind of electric shot making that won him. You know, he's not that kind of guy. That's not his game. And so, you know, I remember at one point in the final round on the broadcast, I said, Corey Ellis is kind of sneaky, very much in the mix right now, because it just didn't, he's getting birdies, but it didn't feel like he was doing anything particularly like amazing. Like, oh, wow, what an incredible tee shot. Like, you know, once in a while we'd see an amazing shot from Barella or from Calvin or, you know, whoever, Eagle, some insane shots, right? Ezra has that brilliant approach on 3 and then airballs the putt out of bounds. I mean, Ezra, like, if there's so many players, if you're like a big fan of, you know, Ezra or Eagle right. or Anthony, and you're just like crushed right now because it's like they had the chances, you know, and instead it was Corey Ellis just steady as she goes and picked his spot, and credit to him. But I don't think this is going to age as well as the Eagle Paul, which people are going to go back and watch for decades to come because, you know, they set records.
Well,
record-setting major rating, record-setting major losing performance.
It's probably not quite 2014 Worlds, but that's the comparison that comes to my mind, right? Is when we say
sure.
European Open last year, I'm like, yep, probably the best battle we've seen since 2014 Worlds. And we still go back and watch that. And the coverage and the actual production quality is not good on that video, but we still watch it because it's such like a defining, important moment in the battle of like the dynamic of Ricky and Paul. As Eagle continues to ascend, this round last year is only going to continue to age better, right? And that's what makes last year so special.
Okay, the past 3 MPO major winners are first-time winners. Gannon Buhr USDGC, Isaac Robin Champions Cup, Corey Ellis here at the European Open. Last time we saw that is 2018 when Eagle won his first at Konopiste, and then we had Greg Barsby win the Worlds, and then Nate Sexton won the USDGC. So do you make anything of that? You think that's a meaningful, or is that just a random blip?
I do think it's meaningful, and I think it's more meaningful than it was back in 2018. And here's why. Eagle wins Konopiste, which was, kind of one of those. It was one of those one-off majors. I don't forget it anymore. Eagle is a multi-time major winner, but it's the one-off major. And then what was, I don't know this right off the top of my head, but what was the average age or the age of Greg and Nate Sexton that year?
right. I don't know.
It's in the 30s?
They were both around, I actually don't know how old Greg Barsby is, but yeah, probably around 30.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Compare that, with Isaac Robinson and Gannon Buhr winning USDGC Champions Cup, and then Corey Ellis. I don't know how old Corey Ellis is, but I don't think he's 30. And so part of it to me is that this feels the 2018 when I look back, and maybe it's hindsight, and that's what's causing me to think this way. But when I look back, I look at 2 older players who'd been on the tour for over a decade, finally getting their major in what was an exciting moment, but by no means, in my opinion, a future indicator of dominance from those players.
Corey Ellis
is 30.
Or he was 29 at Worlds last year. So I think there's a very good chance.
Okay, let's say Corey Ellis is 30. These 3 events feature 2 players who are going to be who could be on tour and could be the best on tour in Isaac Robinson and Gannon Buhr for a decade or more. And Corey Ellis kind of falls in that camp, but it just feels very different. I mean, it's And I guess it's just flipped, right? It's 2 young players and 1 older player in this stretch. And so to me, that feels more meaningful about indicators of where the sport is. 2018 is also when Ricky had Lyme disease, right? So Ricky, who comes off 2 world championships, doesn't compete in 28. Is that right? Or did he get it in 2019?
I think it was 19.
I might be off a year then. Never mind. Get rid of that part of the narrative.
I think it was 19.
But I think my point still stands that like the 2 of the major winners in this case feel very significant as opposed to the one-off of Eagle McMahon. So I guess you could say it's a blip, but it feels meaningful to me about where the sport is and where the sport is going.
It's interesting stuff for sure. We'll see what it means for Corey Ellis moving forward. Sometimes it can be a real shot in the arm to get the one that you haven't been able to get. Nate Sexton's never won another major. Greg Barsby's never won another major. They were both right around their early 30s when they won theirs. And I don't think I'd bet on Corey Ellis to win another major. But I could see him winning an Elite Series. Really good player. So impressed with his poise this week. Okay, let's see. I think we're simply not going to have time to talk about Kristen Tatar and her complete domination in this episode. We have too much else to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and table it. We'll talk about it on Thursday. She won by 16 strokes. It was drama-free. She's now won a career Grand Slam and she's got a chance to win a calendar slam this year. So we'll get into all of that on Thursday. I do want to get to our purse watch. This year, the European Open coming in at a $101,000 purse, a little over that, just slightly up on last year's 100K, just under 2% increase this year. It did have the biggest MPO winner payout of the season behind the Champions Cup at $12,650. But Josh, I guess I find it a little unusual because this is not really a big purse at this point in the sport. I mean, it is big. Over 100,000 is still good, but it's well below Champions Cup. It's going to be massively below the World Championships, which is going to be 275 minimum. And obviously there's fewer players here, so that makes sense. But is this too small of a purse for a major?
Here's the problem for me. It's now been beat. It's been beat by 2 Elite Series events. Portland and Des Moines, and I, you mentioned about the field size. I think this actually is the consequence, and maybe I'm off base on this one, and I'm happy to get some feedback if I am. But I think this is the consequence of the no charging of spectators issue, because yes, you can earn money from fly marts and from other goods, but you can't put that money ahead of time into purse, right? Spectator tickets, you have some locked in revenue that is coming and you already have in your pocket that you can just allocate directly to the purse quite easily. I don't think you can do that when you're depending upon commissions of day of products, because then you're not aware of what those revenues look like until after the tournament is complete and the payouts have already been determined. And so while the European Open does make money from the just enormous number of people there, it is very difficult to then apply that to the purse in the same meaningful way. And I think that's why European Open is as low as it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, to me, it feels like the European Open sort of operates on its own little island where it's like it makes its money via, the media deal that it sells to DGN, as UC was telling us about. And it has whatever money comes in from their Discmania Pro Shop at the tournament itself and whatever kickbacks they get from the vendors who are on site. But they're not getting the pot juiced by like a PDGA who has money to just put into the purse. Like the sponsorships for this tournament feel more impressive than pretty much what we see at other tournaments, right? They had Ford and they had Air Baltic. I met the Air Baltic guy. I met the Air Baltic guy in line waiting for lunch. He's like super excited they're going to be doing more in the future. A big disc golf fan, unsurprisingly. He was there with his kid and they were watching the tournament. And his daughter was very nice, big Paige Pierce fan, and got some Paige Pierce discs because Paige sent some stuff in to be, given out, even though she couldn't be there. It's pretty cool. So many kids in this here at the European Open. If there's one thing you can say, it's like long term, I love the potential for this tournament to be like maybe the biggest in the sport, because the money's going to come when you're getting these kind of eyeballs and all of these people on site. Now, I don't think there was like more than 5,000 people there, just to be clear. But for me, there's some sort of threshold. I don't know what the number is. Probably depends on the course, at which it feels like there's a lot of people there. And once you surpass that threshold, it becomes awesome. And this tournament was awesome from the crowd perspective. Even if it was fewer people than last year, whatever. I don't know what the number was. A couple thousand. I don't think it was 5,000. But it was enough people to make it feel incredibly exciting coming down the stretch, seeing people lining the fairways around the greens, huge cheers when shots were in. And, this is just that's the coolest tournament on the whole tour, the whole season from that perspective.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and just so many disc golf fans coming out in droves to watch the sport, and that's part of what makes the European Open so exciting. And it's such a good spectator course too, in a lot of ways, and that's another big advantage that it has.
All right, we will save our hole 18 review for our final segment, but coming up next, we're talking with Jeff Spring about the big changes coming to the Pro Tour and this new United Series that will allow Natalie Ryan to be playing in events in states where there are strong anti-discrimination laws against people's gender identity. So Jeff Spring joins us next here on the Upshot.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the U.S., employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality U.S. materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Joining us now on the Upshot is the CEO of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, as well as the tour director, Jeff Spring. Jeff, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, big news today. About 10 days ago, the tour announced that the FPO division at a number of tournaments was going to be canceled due to potential legal liability around participation of transgender players, and Natalie Ryan having sued already in California and in Minnesota. Now today, the announcement comes out from the tour that there is going to be the reinstatement of those divisions at those tournaments and the creation of a new United Series, which will allow essentially the PDGA policy for A tiers and below to apply, effectively allowing Natalie Ryan to compete at those upcoming tournaments. So this has been a pretty crazy 2 weeks. Can you tell us about how we got to here and why this is now the policy for the rest of the season?
I'll do my best to summarize for you, Charlie. I think our announcements and statements on this issue provide a lot of information, actually. So not to just restate them, but this was the announcement from July 14th, where we took some steps to limit legal liability and potential financial burden, was a necessary and unavoidable step to immediately limit financial burden in locations where the PDGA policy on eligibility for gender-based divisions may have become the subject of last-minute litigation, harmful to the FPL division and the tour as a whole. And I think that, there's a lot to that, but it really, I think says everything you need to know is, we're aware of potential financial burdens, and we didn't have another option at that time. However, what this created was an inflection point that allowed us to gather our stakeholders, most importantly, the FPO players, on both ends of this issue, and have meaningful discussions about a path forward. So, there's been a lot of sleepless nights for me, for my team, I'm sure for a lot of the competitors, in discussing potential solutions over the last couple weeks. And the outcome is something that we believe will bring us as a sport, as a division, and as an industry together, versus pulling people further apart. And I believe that this issue is above disc golf's head, so to speak. As an industry, we know that it's wide ranging in terms of cultural impact in international sport as well. And, as an industry, as an organization, as an FPO division, we have to look at the reality of the options on the table for both ends and say that there is a middle path. We can walk that middle path. We can ask our fans, followers, and supporters to let us lead down that path and get back to disc golf versus, continuing to go further apart. And I hope that this is the first step to reclaiming some of the culture, community, enjoyment of disc golf that, we're all here to do. And I believe it will be. I believe that this is the right solution for this moment.
During this time, you talk about discussion with the FPO players and stakeholders. I'm curious to know if there were discussions and if this is part of any sort of formal agreement or settlement with Natalie Ryan. Does this mean that she has waived her right to litigate on this matter? What negotiations happened with Natalie Ryan as part of this decision, if any?
Yeah, I can't comment on any settlement negotiations, but I can say that I think that this solution allows stakeholders on both ends of the issue to continue to advocate for their position. This issue has very strongly entrenched viewpoints on both ends. And, we're not asking for people to, stop advocating for what they believe in. We're providing a path that I believe will allow disc golf to show, at least for the time being, what it looks like to, both, have events that include transgender women under our eligibility policy at C1, and events that protect competitive fairness under the eligibility policy at C3. And I don't know that there's a lot of other sports right now that are, walking this middle path. And, as I said, Josh, I just feel that the conversations above the head of our industry, it's going to be decided in larger sports and bigger courts. And our organization, is at the point where we can walk this road and ask others to follow while continuing to advocate for what they believe in. And I think our hope is that we can, really kind of turn our focus to disc golf as an organization, and continue to have this as a prominent issue, that we are aware of, continuing to, be working on, but maybe not the number one issue when it comes to the FPO division on a recurring basis.
Do you feel that the Pro Tour blundered in taking a very strict stance on this issue at the beginning of the season and then facing the legal costs and fairly, I think, obvious lawsuits from Natalie Ryan, and now having to kind of walk back to a more middle ground position, at least one where you're not facing legal liability in states that have pretty strict rules around gender identity as an anti-discrimination policy?
Absolutely not. No, I think that, we were given little choice, but we also believe in the choice that we made. And let me preface the rest of my response with this. As we debate here and talk about the eligibility policy in more detail, and people do out in the social media environment and out in the world. I think that it is imperative to separate the discussion on competitive fairness and C1, transgender women competing in the FPO division from the real life people that are involved in this decision on both ends. Okay, we have core values that speak to inclusion, equality. These are who we are as an organization. And we're really guided by love for the sport, love for the people in the community, and we have love for all people. So, before we get into this, I just want to send a strong message of love to all the people that are affected by this, because there's clearly a lot of the opposite of that out there. There's certainly a lot of hate that you see in comments, maybe misunderstanding. But whatever side you are, in terms of your perspective on this issue, it is absolutely possible to have your perspective and understand that people on the other end of this issue are just as passionate about their perspective and just as certain of their perspective. And, that does not make them any less than a human that deserves love, respect, courtesy. I just can't say enough how strongly a call that I'd like to put out to folks on both ends of this issue to stop dehumanizing anyone on either side. As I said, this issue is beyond just disc golf, and it will be continued to evolve and we'll watch it evolve. And, as it gets decided, I know passions run high, and I know that this is an emotional topic that deals with people's identity, and that's a sensitive thing. But there's sensitivities on both ends. And as I mentioned, there's these very entrenched viewpoints, and we can, as a community, as people who care about this, and as people who care about the Disc Golf Pro Tour, take steps to humanize, spread love and understanding, and still advocate for your viewpoint, knowing that we will have the continued number of months and years ahead of us to continue to see this topic evolve. So I'm sorry for the preamble to my answer here. But I feel that it's critically important that this is a moment that we can come together and understand that it is okay, to have two eligibility policies in play that align with state laws in most cases, just like there are different state laws for a number of different factors, a number of different issues that you can all probably relate to, whether it's cannabis laws being different in state to state, which is not as important, or tax laws. There are so many examples of different laws on a state to state basis. And, Charlie, we don't feel like we've made a misstep. Pivoting back to your point here, and with all due respect and understanding for the different viewpoints on this, we do feel that it's imperative to our organization to protect competitive fairness. We feel that there is clear and definitive scientific research that is being used by organizations that have much bigger budgets and much deeper pockets to provide more research, more study on this, and that have made similar decisions to us. World Athletics, the governing body of track and field. World Aquatics, governing body of swimming, water polo. And then most recently, there was a pivot by UCI, the International Cycling Association, that really aligns with the policy that has been implemented by the PDGA at the C3 level. Now, I think that despite the concerns of competitive fairness, we're open and to all continuing scientific research. We have commissioned more studies into this, specifically about how this plays into the sport of disc golf. But similar to the other organizations, and may I mention, those organizations I just listed are handing out, for the sports that they govern, they're handing out over half of the Olympic medals at the 2028 Olympic Games in California. So, I think that, we're open to the continuing, development of more medical science, but we do feel that to risk the female category when we have certainty of some competitive advantage factors is not the right step. Now, we have to reconcile that with the reality that we want to abide by state law. And this is an emerging topic, and disc golf is one of the first sports to move forward. We're just at a unique place with the timing of how this issue has unfurled for the community. With the lawsuits in California and Minnesota, neither have gone to full trial. I think we have some preliminary decisions that point a certain direction, but we still believe that the policy is non-discriminatory. It's based in competitive fairness, and that we will ultimately win the Minnesota case. But in the meantime, we have to recognize the limits of our organization and our industry to settle this, for the country or for the world, or even on a state level. There's other factors. And I think that we've gone through the necessary process to, follow what we believe to be true in, applying the PDGA's policy. We've, kind of considered the state by state situation. And as I mentioned, we had to take steps to move in a new direction, at least hit the pause button while we talk to our stakeholders. And the solution is one that, everyone can point to and say, hey, I've got my glass half full here, and we can move forward and focus on what's most important here, which is celebrating disc golf at the professional level, understanding that under the C1 eligibility policy, everyone who's going to be playing in those events is eligible, and it's going to be, a way to celebrate gender identity and diversity and inclusion, which we've been excited and happy to do for multiple years. And we're excited to welcome back into our tour. At the same time, we're going to preserve competitive fairness in states where we believe that's the local law that we've got to follow. And also, it's a path that allows for this topic for everyone to continue to, kind of be advocated for, whatever your belief is. So sorry for the wordy answer, but one thing I think we can all recognize is that this is a very complex topic, and I think it's easy to kind of be polarized, take a side, and not think about the details here. And I'm hoping that the audience will take the time to understand some of this nuance. I believe that everyone's in a position where we can support the Disc Golf Pro Tour and move forward and come back together, because this is really an opportunity to unite and say, we've all got a little bit of what we need here.
I mean, speaking for myself, I think this is clearly a better outcome than where we were a week ago with, long-standing top-tier tournaments not offering FPO divisions and trying to pull together some kind of last-minute something in states otherwise. Obviously, a lot of the messaging from the Pro Tour here and from what you've just been talking about is about unity, togetherness, inclusion, all of these things. But at the same time, the tour is still clearly taking the stance that you believe that transgender women who didn't transition before puberty shouldn't be allowed to compete. And you're not going to be allowing, Natalie Ryan or others to compete in the Pro Tour Championship or in other states where you don't face the same legal liability. So, do you really feel that this is like a unity issue? I mean, Natalie Ryan doesn't seem totally pleased by this outcome. Some of the players who have spoken out against Natalie Ryan being allowed to compete don't seem totally pleased by this issue. It doesn't, like, what you're saying about unity and inclusion, like, isn't necessarily being matched by what the policy here, which is really bifurcated based on state law.
Yeah, I understand. I understand your question, Charlie, but just let me stop you partway through the question and say, we do believe that Natalie should be able to compete, but there's different eligibility rules. So, when the eligibility rule, is applied at the C1 level, she should be able to compete, and I think that what we're talking about is, we need to forge a path that has solutions for transgender women long-term to be able to compete. But we also need to be able to protect fairness for the female category. And that's our stance. And, I think that the rest of, kind of what you're getting at here is that nobody's completely happy. And let me acknowledge that, that I think we're looking at glass half full, glass half empty. And so, folks on both sides of this issue can choose to point to the glass half empty or to point to the glass half full. And I think we'll see a lot of that. And my staff, our touring players, on both ends of this issue have said, let's come together. Let's embrace the glass half full, because if we move further apart and if we, kind of continue to look at the challenges of this issue, the viability of any FPO division in the future is going to run through our hands like sand. And that's something that, I believe is a real concern. And I believe that our steps, with the United Series charts the path to a brighter future where people can say, I've got, half my glass full. I'm happy about that. I can continue to advocate for my position. And I think it's important for everybody to maybe stop and say, like, maybe we don't have, the answers of how this will play out over the course of time in society. And to that point, let's get back to disc golf in the meantime and accept the reality of, hey, we've got something that we can move forward on, celebrate disc golf together, and maybe just watch, learn, listen, let's see what transpires here. I envision a future where all the FPO competitors come together, find a solution that we're all happy with, on both ends of the issue, because again, we're humans involved in this. The competitors, deserve to be respected, regardless of their position, or deserve to be free of harassment, regardless of their position. And, I believe that the FPO competitors will rally around this, will find ways to listen to each other, find ways to learn, and we'll keep, trying to refine this solution, which I believe is durable. Like, I believe this is a durable solution that we can refine and implement in the future. And I just think it's going to, make people, instead of reacting, take a step back and watch and like, let's just see what happens at these events. Let's just continue to watch and learn. And, I think we're going to move forward in a positive direction and be able to celebrate the beautiful things that we all love about disc golf, instead of putting this issue as priority number one on a recurring basis. And that's our goal with the United Series.
As I want to ask you as the tournament director for Worlds about this decision as well, and whether there were additional considerations, or, if your answer is just kind of copy and paste in the sense about the state laws, work, and I understand where that all applies. It does feel a little bit different from this decision around a PDGA major, as it's not part of the United Series. It's just it's just changing that criteria for that major in particular. Are there any other comments that you'd have about that decision-making process?
No, not much, but the PDGA World Championship is part of the United Series and will be awarded, points and at MVP, which is the last event of the United Series this year. The points from that event will count in the top three standings, and we're putting together some bonus payouts for the United Series that includes, PDGA Pro Worlds points. But I think it's the same situation. As a sport, we want to be unified together. Our organization, the PDGA, I commend them for making, their decision. I think that this gives the PDGA a path forward to a more durable solution as well. I just, continue to advocate for fans of the sport, people that love disc golf, advocate for what you believe in, but, this is a solution that, provides something good for everybody and can be durable over the course of the next couple of years.
What's the plan? I guess I'm curious about why have a separate series with its own payout? Is there what's the logic behind that part of this?
This is an event designation that we're able to apply to our events to differentiate the eligibility policy. We wanted to, think creatively. We took feedback from the FPO players, and we wanted to make sure that this new series, really had some meat on it. And I think, we'll take the feedback that we get from this year and refine it for the future. But we're hopeful that we can. Just keep making it better. So hopefully that makes sense.
If I can ask, I have a couple of kind of clarifying technical questions around the way that this tour is going to function. So let's say, Natalie Ryan plays in Ledgestone coming up, and Natalie Ryan wins. With this designation, Natalie Ryan would win first prize purse, and that wouldn't change the payout structure for that tournament in particular. Natalie would also win 150 United Series points. Does Natalie qualify for DGPT points?
Yeah, this is just an additional rider, a designation that kind of goes over the top of the existing DGPT point series. Everybody who's playing that's eligible for the event gets standard Disc Golf Pro Tour points, same payout, same everything. But the main designation here is that, when there's a United Series event, the eligibility policy will run at C1, and that will allow for participation of all transgender women who meet C1. And, I'm sure there will be several that, look to compete in our events, and we'll welcome them all and be able to celebrate the return of transgender women competing in Disc Golf Pro Tour events. That will be the same outcome for all 6 of the events that are under this designation, including, like you said, PDGA Pro Worlds. And going forward, that's the overriding element here, which is the eligibility policy. So points are secondary to the eligibility policy, which will determine eligibility in each event.
Will you plan to use this again next year, assuming that this hasn't been settled by larger courts, bigger sports? And I guess as a secondary question on the same topic, will this affect the tour's decision-making around which states tournaments will be held in moving forward?
So, second part first. No, I mean, we want to, keep the Disc Golf Pro Tour schedule moving forward in the same trajectory it's always been. We do not want to, kind of avoid states for any reason. We want to, manage the eligibility policy in a way that's lawful. And we're learning a lot about that this year. So, we believe that wherever we go, we're going to have a tool, to manage the eligibility policy in a way that aligns with local law. And, we're doing a little bit more research on that, in planning for the future. We anticipate, I think that the other option here is not go to, some really iconic events that may rip the heart out of the FPO schedule. It's not viable for the tour, for our players, and for our stakeholders. So, I think that, this is the middle road that allows us to, kind of keep everything, moving forward. We're in our fourth year, as an organization, and, still, kind of a growing startup that's trying to turn the corner to maturity. So this is a real challenge for us. We don't necessarily have the resources. We don't necessarily have the experience in this realm to do anything but learn as we go. But when things happen, like court cases and eligibility challenges, I think we're well equipped to, take some time. And again, that's what this period, kind of this inflection point, has allowed us to do, and really gather our stakeholders, gather the sport together and say, how do we move forward here? How would you like to see things moving forward? I can't impress upon you enough that this is the culmination of the stakeholders' wishes here. And, I think the good part about it is that we can just kind of keep going, business as close to usual as possible, which we're excited about. I mean, I'm certainly, excited to get back to a focus on the events and the players.
Was the goal to get to this earlier? And was the announcement from 10 or 11 days ago a tactical move to get to here? Or were those two things just that precipitated more conversations that now led us to where we are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this right off the top when you asked, but it was a necessary and unavoidable step to immediately limit financial burden in locations where the policy may have been subject to last minute litigation that's harmful to the tour. And that was unavoidable. It was not a tactic in any way, shape, or form. We wanted to avoid that. But in the short term, one of the consequences of the announcement was, the ability to dive deeper into the topic. And again, I think that there are two paths, and one is going further away and one is coming together. So we're coming together, not just because that's what the Disc Golf Pro Tour wants to do. It's because what stakeholders on both ends of this issue wants to do. I'm frankly quite excited at the outcome, because I think that it provides something for everyone. Provides, both parts of the eligibility policy, to be able to be implemented. And it lets us celebrate inclusion. And it also, protects competitive fairness where possible. So, it's really, I'm just really thankful to have the FPO players, that are so thoughtful, educated, and passionate about the sport to say, we can do this together. We can come together, we can start listening, and we can start learning a little bit more about the perspectives on the other end of the spectrum. And I think that's part of what I want to keep coming back to, is that we can listen, we can understand the perspectives on the other end. Not going to be easy for some, for sure. Not going to happen for everybody, for sure. I think if you see social media reaction, that just won't resonate with plenty of people. But I think that knowing that our stakeholders are bought in through this period is the most important thing. Knowing that people are excited to get back to disc golf and move forward with the United Series is just what makes me excited, so.
I've got two questions that I want to ask on kind of the financial side. Number one, have you had any reflection from sponsors in discussion one way or the other regarding the Disc Golf Pro Tour role and I guess policies regarding transgender athletes?
Not too much, and I would always respect the privacy of partners in giving their feedback. But I would say it's kind of an issue that I believe that partners aren't necessarily getting into disc golf to be a part of. I think that they love a lot of parts of the sport and understand that this is a challenging issue. So we haven't heard a lot, honestly. But I appreciate the question, Josh.
Yeah. If I might ask then kind of a secondary question with it, we had you and Todd Rainwater on during the off season and talked about kind of some of the improvements that were made and the reason why some of the expenditures that the Pro Tour made last season in order to upgrade Disc Golf Network primarily, that meant that the Pro Tour didn't operate at a profit last season. I'm wondering if those expenditures for court costs and lawsuits are going to set back the Pro Tour another year on profitability.
Yeah, I've always been happy to be able to be basically transparent about this in a general way, and I believe that that's probably true. I think that we. When we made our announcement on the 14th, hit the pause button, made the announcement to cancel and relocate some events. It was, because we wanted to preserve the concept that we could continue to grow in the future, and maybe not move backwards. I think that we're hopeful that this solution, allows for continued growth in the future. That said, we've got a lot of projects on our plate. The normal operating budget of the Disc Golf Pro Tour looks to remain healthy. We have revenue sources from our Disc Golf Network subscribers, advertising and partnerships. We've got merchandise, and we got ticketing, for, all those are healthy and growing, and I think that generally, the sport has, basically seen a plateau, kind of level out from the COVID growth spike. And, that makes a ton of sense. And we believe that we're fairly unique in that we keep seeing growth on the professional level of the tour, whether it's on site or online. And it shows that the industry is still pointing in the right direction. I actually believe that the Disc Golf Pro Tour will be the next growth moment for the sport, whether it's, something hopefully similar to COVID. But we certainly are planning, working to make sure that our core business is solid and the solid structure is able to be built on and scaled. But, scaling takes a lot of people and a lot of resources to be done well. One thing we don't want to do is move forward too fast and have to take steps back. So we don't want to undermine, any confidence, that we're going to be growing sustainably. I believe that we're in a position to continue growth sustainably. I think that in terms of, profitability, certainly, believe that is, achievable, really at any point in time. But when you look at our projects this year, our, expansion into the live disc golf market more meaningfully in Europe, as well as, the Jomez acquisition in terms of the partnership there. Those were kind of things that we knew carry some investment and and some risk that they'll pay off for the tour. And those were the two kind of propositions that we had strategized for coming into this year, along with an understanding that this topic was going to be probably litigated to some extent this year. So I feel like we're at a point where we feel comfortable with the position that the tour is in. We believe that we can continue to grow, but we don't want to kind of go beyond the limits of our kind of financial abilities and sacrifice the potential for growth in the future. And we'll have to look at this at the end of the year, and as we always do, and make a plan for next year and decide what's going on. But for the time being, I'm hoping to avoid any challenges that may affect the tour materially, but we're taking action to make sure that that's the case.
All right, Jeff. Well, thanks for coming on. And this is a tough topic. I can imagine it's been very difficult for the tour to kind of work through all of this. And we just had a major, and now here we are talking about this again. I guess I'm hoping that we'll have some more opportunity to focus on the disc golf and not what's going on off the course as we go through the rest of this year.
Yeah, we hope so too. We believe that this is the solution that gets us there. And I really appreciate you guys having me on and let me share a little bit more about this. Certainly a tough topic for everyone, but I'd like to just close with restating, the message that I shared before of listening, learning, understanding, loving, avoiding divisiveness on this topic, because the United Series is our path to getting back to disc golf, having a brighter future for this division on all sides of this issue. So we truly believe that we're in for brighter days. We hope to move forward together. And as always, thanks for having me on. I hope to return and do an end of season recap or something, and we'll look back at this as an inflection point where we can all move forward together from. So,
well, before we let you go, any thoughts on the European Open and what went down this past weekend?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I just I think I'll echo all the players and like the fans of the sport that just talk about how special the European Open environment is for the professional side of disc golf, with basically annually the biggest crowd now that we see. It's electric, and the results for FPO and MPO were quite different, as you both know. But man, Corey kind of is continuing this theme of breakthrough winners that are kind of jumping over those who are maybe next in line. When I think about Calvin and having a major moment, it seems well due. And so I feel for him. Certainly, AB has had his fair share of heartbreak, and we kind of added to that list, but also showed a lot of fight, and he's inching closer. And then we kind of pivot to Corey, who just had kind of such recent heartbreak, but not as much as maybe those other two, so, it was his time. And, I think it's just really, that's what's special about disc golf, and golf in general, is that, it's really about the present moment and where the player's psyche, where the player's form is, in those key moments, and not just your swing coming into it or your putt coming into it, but your mental psyche. Like, is this the moment that you are just present coming down the stretch and zoned in, and sometimes it's almost just left up to us all watching, maybe even for the players, to just see how those chips fall. And that's what's so exciting and compelling about being able to show the live moments week after week. On the FPO side, incredible completion of basically a career Grand Slam. Career Grand Slams are now new to disc golf, in the fact that we see Paul Macbeth about to tie Climo's record if he can notch another major, but he still doesn't have the career Grand Slam because the Champions Cup's only been around for 2 years. So, there's going to be some asterisks on this portion of disc golf history. I think maybe similar to the majors in tennis with the Australian Open coming into the Open era. So, I think we're going to look back at the players here as kind of like the Margaret Courts of our era, if you will, in terms of navigating like the major, kind of the major wins and records and whatnot. But I mean, we couldn't be at a more exciting time in our sports history, seeing Paige and Paul like knocking on the door of, kind of history, every single major, establishing history of like Disc Golf Pro Tour winning records, week in and week out, and having a brand new young crop of like 15, 16, 17-year-olds making noise. I mean, it's just incredible. And I just feel lucky to be a part of it, be leading our team to help tell the story. And how's that for a recap, Charlie? Did you get more than you bargained for?
It was an exciting weekend. So, a lot to talk about. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Jeff Spring with us here on the Upshot. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. So, Josh, what do you make of this? Pro Tour basically snip, snap, going flip-flop on this decision and coming up with something that looks a lot like what we talked about last time we talked about this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is exactly what we said in terms of the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA should not be the ones who want to be the test pig, like the guinea pigs or the test subjects here. They do not want to be the ones who are the precedent-setting legal battle and all the financial and publicity and social obligations that come with being the first. And Jeff highlighted and said exactly that, right? This solution is one that is designed to create a point that undermines any and effectively it tries to effectively eliminate any chance for potential legal action by any party around this matter until it is decided by a bigger sport with more money at a higher level, so that this doesn't have to be relitigated in every single state over and over and over by the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
It might not work. I mean, that's the other thing here. It's like it might not work. It's a really tough spot for the Pro Tour to be in, because you have people who are very adamantly for inclusion and people who are very adamantly against inclusion, and you can't satisfy both of those groups. It's not possible.
Right.
So, but I will say, and I don't come on here and do this that often, but I couldn't have been more right about this topic and how this was going to play out and why this was the wrong choice from the PDGA in the offseason. And this is the white flag going up. Mm-hmm. This is the white flag going up. We can't afford it. We don't want to fight it anymore. We're going to wait it out until other people determine this. Exactly.
Yeah.
And even the PDGA is going to open up worlds to Natalie Ryan So they don't even get through their whole year of majors before they say never mind. And look, I get it, right? It's expensive to fight these legal battles, but what did they think was going to happen here? I mean, it's frustrating to me because this was all easily foreseen. And it's created so much just consternation, wasted money, wasted resources, pain and anguish. And this still isn't really a wonderful solution forever, but I will give them credit. This is a massive upgrade over the awful, awful solution, quote unquote, that we had for the last 10 days.
Yeah.
I mean, people were like, over the weekend, like, we still haven't heard where the FPO division is going to be during the Ledgestone week. And like, did they have a fallback plan? I don't think so. I think basically this was the plan that they felt that they were going to get here. Maybe they had something back as a backup, but this is a lot better than before because now people are going to be able to play. Right. The divisions are going to happen. No one is going to be fully satisfied by this outcome, including the Pro Tour, but that's, what else can we do at this point, given where things are, besides have this compromise position? No one is going to be fully appreciative of the situation, but at least we're not going to have, second class FPO events. This seems like far superior. And I think you're seeing that in the reactions from players because you've had, Kristen Tatar, Paige Pierce, and Ella Hansen were all quoted in the Pro Tour press release as basically being for this compromise solution. And then Sarah Hokum, who's been one of the most outspoken advocates against Natalie being able to compete in FPO, going on Facebook and saying, while I don't think that she should be able to compete, this is a reasonable compromise for now. And so I think when you're seeing that there's people in both camps feeling like this is an acceptable way forward, it sure beats the alternative.
Right. And we said from the get-go that we didn't feel like the idea of changing half the tour into new events was going to be financially or otherwise logistically feasible. I think, the point that you make that I think is just the best point is like, did an attorney not say, hey, just a heads up, like you're going to get sued and you're probably going to lose in a couple of states where you have the tour? Like,
Josh, they just asked the medical committee for their legal opinion and they went with that. Anyway.
No, Charlie.
I don't. They actually have a legal committee too.
I was about to make the joke.
Similarly qualified.
Charlie, I have an announcement to make.
I'm tired of this issue. Yes, go ahead.
I've actually been selected
You're
as
the head of the legal committee?
Yeah. They considered my extensive debate experience to be relevant towards the legal committee, so I will be the chairman of the legal subcommittee. Anyway,
I'm tired of this topic. I got to be honest, and I know it's important to people, and like it's this culture war issue, but like it feels like it's just been. Every turn it just boom, it sucks all the oxygen out of the room, and it's like the main news topic of an entire week. And here we are again. I'm hoping that it's at least we can get through the rest of the season, and then we can work on it in the off season. Off season, sure. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the disc golf, right? We had a major, and this segment bumped talking about FPO. Isn't that ironic? I mean, it's our show, so we could have chosen not to do that. But, I think it's pretty important that we have Jeff Spring on to talk about this whole topic at the moment. So, anyway, why don't we review hole 18 at the European Open to close out today's show? Hole 18, it's part of a really excellent stretch of holes at the end of the European Open. 15, 16, 17, 18. So much risk reward, so many excellent separators, pressure. 17, what an awesome penultimate hole. Like, like such an interesting shape that you don't often see, right? Like kind of like a not that long of a shot, but
that's
with the
point I was gonna
downward
make.
sloping backhand danger with left. It's awesome. But 18 in particular, with the fans and the leaderboard and the really tight green and the elevated basket and the super narrow fairways, Josh, I'm going 10. I'm going 10-10. MPO, FPO, double tens. It's got everything that you want.
I haven't said it too much, but literally when we started this exercise, I said to myself, all right, European Open hole 18, that is a 10, right? That's in my mind what a 10 is. Is there any hole that can match the European Open? And up until now, I mean, we haven't seen it. And maybe that will happen on the back half of the season. We will see. But I agree with you, Charlie. I go 10-10 as well. The scoring separation's incredible. The drama's incredible. And it just sets up opportunity, even with 2-3 strokes. Like, you can lose that. And tournaments have been won and lost on hole 18. It's fully visible for the spectators. It's got technicality to it. The elevated basket with it. I mean, it really is just a spectacular. And something, here's one other consideration I'll add. What an incredible image and shot that they take when the player wins, right? With the leaderboard, the pine trees behind it. Like, it looks really nice when you have the player like holding up the trophy. There are some tournaments where you finish on hole 18 and they look at the picture and you're like, this is what we're supposed to put on press releases? Like, this looks awful. It looks terrible. So it's so visually and aesthetically appealing to combine with excellent play. 10-10. Perfect 10. This is the standard.
Arguably came down to 18 in MPO. There at least was the question
and in
mark
FPO.
of,
I mean, it was so close.
Of course. And hey, well, yeah, but I mean, you're joking, but Haiti Lina getting eagle to make the podium.
That's true.
Like, that was sick. That was really
sick.
Awesome. And like, she played that hole so perfectly. You know, that's a possibility. You know, I could quibble with the par for FPO. It's like a kind of a tweener, right? It's not like really a par 5, but I'm not going to quibble. I'm going to enjoy the hole for what it is, and it's what it brings to the table.
Let me read out the scores for you though on the top 5. So if you just look top 5, we'll go top 6. Birdie, eagle, birdie, bogey, par, bogey, birdie. It's like it's good. Like, it's great. It's great.
It's good.
Like, that's
yep.
It's got you know, I know you say you could quibble, but it's got as many in the top 6 players. I guess I didn't go all the way down through the ties, but in those first 6 that I read off, you have as many bogeys and pars as you do. So you have equal number birdies and bogeys and eagles and pars. Like, it's great. That's great. It's great. It's a great hole.
It's a great hole.
It's a great hole.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. We'll be back with you on Thursday. We're going to talk more about the course. We're going to talk more about European Open. We're going to talk about Kristen Tatar and what she's been doing this season. So much more to get to. We're probably going to take some mailbag questions too, so get them in. Upshot@ultiworld.com is the way to reach us, and we'll take some of your questions. All topics available, but probably European Open will be the primary focus. So thank you so much for tuning in. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying talk to you on Thursday right here on the Upshot.